When it comes to school meals, milk is often the one item that you see every single day. But how much do we really know about it? And why is it so central to the tray?
Welcome to School Food for Thought, the official podcast of the School Nutrition Association. In this special season, we're diving into the truth behind school meals, looking at some of the biggest myths out there and setting the record straight.
From farm to cafeteria, milk plays a bigger role than you might imagine in students' health and nutrition. And today's guests are here to talk about how and why. With me are Katie Bamback, Vice President of Nutrition Affairs for the National Dairy Council, Audrey Donahue, dairy farmer and owner of Atras Farms in New York, and Lindsay Palmer, Vice President of Nutrition Industry Relations at Chartwells. We've got some great voices and great facts coming your way. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So great to have you here. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with you, Katie. When we talk about giving kids a balanced diet that's rich in nutrients, and what makes milk a critical component in school meals? Why is milk so great?
Well, let's start with the history. So, National School Lunch Program began in 1946, and dairy milk has been a component of the meal program since its inception. And it's because of its incredible nutritional value. And also, it helps children provide them an opportunity to come closer to meet their 3 servings of dairy every day, which is recommended based on the dietary guidelines for Americans. And we know based on research that children who participate in school meals, they consume more dairy milk, but they also consume more fruits and they also consume more vegetables. So school meals are helping children consume some of these under-consumed food groups that they're not getting enough of at home. And even looking at USDA research, school meals are the richest source of dairy in children's diets. So it's an incredible channel to help children meet their 3 servings of dairy every day, which is really critical for their growth and development and for them to have healthy brains, bones, and bodies as they grow throughout their life.
Sounds great. So, Lindsay, let me go to you. What are you seeing more creative ways in which schools are serving and promoting milk? We've seen, a lot more of the parfaits and the smoothie bars. What have you seen throughout K-12?
Yeah, so when we're looking at our trends, we try to really look at what data we're finding with what kids are seeing outside of schools. And so millennials are the ones right now having kids that are seeing their way through schools. And so we try to see what their parents are consuming outside of schools, what they're bringing home, what they're serving, but then also what kids like to see. So we follow those data trends. We see what they're seeing outside of school, what they're posting on social media, what they're also bringing into school. So we're using that data point to help drive participation through our programming. So we've done a few pilots actually with the Dairy Council over the last few years, including smoothie pilots. Those smoothie pilots are really popular because smoothies, which contain dairy, are so popular with students. Blended smoothie drinks are one of the #1 drinks for students in our school settings. So not only are they getting fruits and vegetables, they're also getting that dairy component. And then that's also a really easy switch because we can use those to create smoothie bowls. And kids love options, so it gives them a chance to put their own toppings on it, put their own spin on something. So it feels like something that's outside of home, but it's happening in school. And not only are they getting school meals, but they're getting dairy and they're getting stuff that they may not even know is good for them because it feels super popular.
Yep. And at the same time, it feels like it has that restaurant or like
Exactly.
cafe feel to
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, 'cause, they're all over social media and what's going on TikTok
Absolutely.
and YouTube. Yeah, it's a whole new generation out there. Audrey, what does the journey look like from a farm like yours to a student's trade? What goes into making sure that milk's safe and it's great as a meal component?
Yeah, very fresh and local, that's for sure. So from the time the milk leaves my farm until it's in the children's carton school trays at school or in the grocery store is less than 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's tested every day before the milk leaves my farm. It's tested just to ensure that it's safe. And it's got to be as good of a product as I can possibly produce because milk is healthy, nutritious, and that's what we aim for. to make sure that we're serving that food that is healthy and nutritious. Our primary care, our priority on the farm is to our cows. Of course, that's my favorite part of the farming is with my cows. So, the better we take care of them, the better product they produce. And as I'm producing food, I want to make sure that it's a wholesome, healthy product. And even better yet, it's delicious too.
Yeah, and you mentioned before you are what, a fifth generation farmer?
So yes, I'm a fifth generation dairy farmer. I have 6 children. Our third son is on the farm with us as a partner now. So that means that we've been producing milk for over 150 years in my family alone. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That's just wonderful. Katie, for parents who are curious, how is milk different from what they might buy at the grocery store? Because Audrey said it leaves her farm 24 hours, but it goes to the grocery store and it goes to school. How is that journey different?
So school milk is required to follow the USDA nutrition standards. So it's regulated and there's requirements, and some of those being the milk has to be served in an 8-ounce container, so 1 cup serving per meal. The milk can be low fat or fat free. It can also be flavored or unflavored, and also lactose-free milk is an option within school meal programs. So those are the types of milks that you will see within a school meal program. Also, there are nutrition standards around added sugars in flavored milk. And this just went into effect for this school year, where flavored milk can contain no more than 10 grams of added sugars per 8-ounce serving, so per 1 cup serving. And the good news here is that the dairy industry has been innovating and reformulating our products since 2007, and we've been able to decrease the amount of added sugars in flavored milk by 55% over those decade plus. And we're currently at, on average, roughly 7 grams of added sugar per 8-ounce serving that you'll see in school. So the flavored milk in schools is very different than what you'll see in retail. And it is made specifically for children due to the request and also now the regulation requirement to have a lower added sugar product in school meals. And so that is great to see the innovation over the years, the reformulation. And we know flavored milk is a popular choice. Kids enjoy it. And if children have the option, they drink more of it. And also there's less waste in the school cafeteria. So there's a lot of benefits to flavored milk. You still get your same 13 essential nutrients with just a little bit of added sugar.
Yeah, you mentioned lactose-free milk. Is that like a standard? So let's just say I have a child, they like milk, but they have an intolerance. How, as a parent, how do I go about, asking if that's an option? How do I approach the school nutrition staff?
I would suggest you reach out to your school nutrition director or the menu planner, maybe even the manager at your local school to inquire about your options. Lactose-free milk is allowable in school meal programs, and there was a pilot we did recently with Cincinnati Public Schools where they offered lactose-free milk to their students and saw a big increase in participation. They are a large district with high minority population, and we do see higher levels of lactose intolerance with people of color. And so offering that to students allowed children who maybe couldn't participate before or drink the milk before, they had it readily available in the milk cooler alongside the regular milk. So it provided an additional option for those students, and they saw participation and milk consumption increase, but also participation in their meal program. More students participate in the meal program because they had a milk offering that they were able to enjoy without having an upset stomach.
Yeah, because if they know it's an option, then they're more likely to try not only the milk but other things, right? So I think it opens the door for more engagement. Yeah, it's really great.
I think anytime you take away a barrier to access something, really helps in that program participation. One less form for a parent to fill out, and since it's so easy now to have something like a lactose-free milk available, why not? That's what we think when we're talking about putting it in our schools. We try not to have it be an additional barrier. It's just there, it's accessible, and it makes participation so much easier for our students.
Yeah, and it tends to have like this ripple effect, right? Maybe a child that wasn't participating at all, now they see a chance and they come through the program because it's now viable. So yeah, absolutely. And Audrey, there are a lot of misconceptions about farming in general. And we heard a previous podcast guest say, when I served chicken, bone-in chicken to my kids, everybody was shocked to see that the chicken had bone. And I had to explain that to them. Well, no, that's how it is, not the nuggets or whatever that you might have seen before. But what are, like, now that so many of us live in urban areas and are removed from farms, what are some of the misconceptions and what is the top myth that you're working to debunk surrounding dairy farming?
Yeah, one of the things I always like to share with people is that it's a business. So on my farm, I am tested federally. I am tested by the state. We're inspected. My milk is tested every single day before it leaves that farm. Like, it's a business that we run. Like, my grandfather used to say, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I truly do feel that way being a dairy farmer. But that part of it that people don't understand is that I have to run a business and I have to make sure that I stick to running the business and meeting those regulations, being inspected by the state and federally inspected in order to pass to continue to ship my product. But it's consumers. Like, you are consuming my product and we want to make sure that it's safe. So you have access to that healthy product and food that I'm producing. So I think that's one of the biggest myths that, I like to explain to people, that we do run a business and I do produce a very safe product because of all those regulations that we have and we have to oversee to make sure that we meet all of those standards on our farm. But like I said, I do love what I do, but there is that part of it that people don't understand, is that I do have to run a business as well.
And the standards are very high to ensure that you have a best product and that's safe and it's nutritious and it's delicious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the federal regulations and the state regulations, there are very, very high standards that we have to meet.
Sounds like school meals and dairy farming are very similar. There's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, we really do have a lot in common. You're absolutely right. But when you think about it, I wouldn't want it any other way.
Absolutely.
I have kids, 9 grandkids. I want to make sure that what they're consuming is healthy. And I know that I'm producing a healthy, nutritious product, but I also want it to be safe, just like the schools do for the children. So, and I think that's a good thing. But that is one part of my business that people don't understand. And yeah, there is a lot of regulations. So we do have that connect between the schools and farm, definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Lindsay, how can parents get involved or learn more about the milk and the dairy that's offered in schools? You see so many schools throughout the country. What are some of the tips that you'd share with the parents?
I think first and foremost, as parents, like getting involved in their school, just going in and seeing what's actually happening in their cafeteria. I think the misconception piece, just thinking about, farms, and it's somewhat similar in that aspect of you don't really know what you know until you know it. And I think that parents, families not understanding what's happening in a school cafeteria, not only how hard it is to manage a school cafeteria, but what they're seeing. And so when I was in high school a number of years ago, I will not disclose, it was very different even now than what you're seeing out here in this expo, what you're seeing and what's happening with new products, new innovation. And so we want parents to come in and see that. And we want them to actually taste the food that we're offering. We want them to see some of those school gardens that are happening. And so it's the same thing with dairy, that we want them to see those smoothie bowls. We want them to see the new pilots that we're offering, the equipment, some of the innovation that's happening around recipes and equipment, just everything that goes into what makes a school meal. And it's the food, it's the love, it's the partnership, it's all of that. And so just going in and seeing what's actually happening in their cafeteria is first and foremost. And then there's all the kind of normal things, the parent-teacher groups, the associations, and just getting involved in that cafeteria space. And I think once parents actually get involved, they become advocates because there is some misconceptions there. And then I think once they're actually involved, they're our biggest audiences. They're our biggest, partners. They're our cheerleaders when it comes to explaining to others that are maybe naysayers or not understanding what's going on, what actually does happen in that cafeteria space.
Yeah, and whenever I talk to Katie, we always talk about how to get the word out, and we talk about the farmers and how everybody loves farmers. We had, a few guests here recording another podcast, and they were like, no, we partner with the farms, and, when we put stuff here, it's like Pete's apples or, or somebody else's blueberries, and they put the picture of the farmer and their name, so the kids, know them, and they become celebrities, and they see them when they go to the farmer's market. Oh, wow, that's the same family that, does blueberries at my school. And so what tips would you have, Katie, and everybody jump in here, for schools who really want to promote the milk offerings in their programs, to get parents to buy in, to understand the options that they have that maybe they didn't know they had? What are some of the tips or advice that you give them?
I think it's always a good idea to reach out to your local farm community. Get to know who's in your area, who produces your milk, where is your milk coming from. Can you have those conversations about what farms are providing the milk that we're receiving? And you can get to know your dairy farmers. And you can also share out information around the nutritional benefits of milk. I feel like that gets lost in the discussion a bit. We know that a lot of people know milk is good for your bones, but also milk is really good for your teeth, and it's really important for brain development and function. It has high quality protein, so it's so much more than just strong bones. And so I think we can do more to reach out with some nutrition information and education about milk's critical role, while also connecting people back to their local farming community and who produces their milk, and making it more of a like a community regional opportunity. And so it's, who's producing your milk, you have trust in them, you've had a conversation, and you can feel good about what you're consuming. Yeah.
And we as dairy farmers encourage that. A lot of us open our farms for tours or, to host events at the farm because we want to bring you into the farm because we have nothing to hide. So we like to be open and very transparent. We care for our animals, we care for our land, and we want to share that with people. We want them to know this is where your food is coming from, and these are the practices that we have here on my farm. So we're very, very receptive to having somebody come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Who doesn't like to go on a farm? I think like adults and kids, everybody's just so different, and it's so wholesome, right?
Yeah.
See like your animals and where your food comes from. I think it's, everybody loves one of those. What about you? What do you think?
I think it's about communicating to the right groups of people in the right way. And so communicating with kids about milk and why it's good for them. And that might not be the same way that we communicate with the adults as to why we're offering it, because sometimes it's the why for them. And then with the students is, what's on the tray today? We don't necessarily have to go always into the why with the students because they're consuming it. But with parents, we have to communicate with them in a different way. That might be, with parents, they're millennials, maybe they're on Facebook, whereas the kids are on TikTok. So it's about how to communicate with the different groups of people about the products that we're serving to our students. And then same thing with, obviously, with the kind of target audience of the educators themselves about the why behind the things that we're doing. If we're starting a pilot program, what are we doing in the schools? Why we're doing that program there? When is it? And again, you're doing a very similar communication, but in a different fashion to try to make sure you're rounding out all of the different pieces of that program so that when the kids come home, there's an understanding of what happened. And then with the parents, you're communicating it so that they know that they can promote it to the kids.
And why it's happening too. When you mentioned some of the pilots that you do you look back to the parents and say, this is what happened? Because I think a lot of times it's just like, well, I know it was happening. What came after that?
We do. We try really hard to make sure when we're piloting something that it makes sense in that school district, but we also really try to incorporate student feedback, parent feedback afterwards. We collect data. That's a huge part of it. We don't want to just run something and then say, well, that was great, we'll see you later. We try to make sure that it's worthwhile, that if it worked in one school district, we can replicate it other places. And then also that if it worked well, let's try to keep doing it. Whether it's in that school district, other places like I had mentioned, but we obviously want to share the data. We want to make sure that it was a worthwhile investment for that school district. And then if there's other lessons learned, if it didn't work well, what does that look like? So incorporating parents' feedback is always really important because it gets back to your initial question a few minutes ago of if we don't have good parent participation or we have some naysayers, using that data will really hopefully bring them into the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for being here. I've learned a ton, and I think we all learned that milk matters, from the nutrients to the roots in local farms. It's still a vital part of school nutrition and our diet. Really appreciate you being here. And our final episode of the season, we're turning the spotlight on the parents and the power that they have to shape school meals.